Hello students, this is Professor McDonald again. This will be my comments for Chapter 11, Robbery. Most of you have a pretty good handle or good understanding of what a robbery is, but let's look at some of the basic facts. Robbery is simply the taking of personal property from the person or presence of another against their will or by means of force or fear. That's what separates it from larceny, just stealing something. It's that element of force or fear. It's a felony crime, and it can be aggravated when the robber or any accomplices is armed and inflicts serious bodily injury against the victim or their witnesses. The major problem, of course, of proof in a robbery case is actually identifying the robber. So when we're looking at robbery, what are the essential elements of the crime that we have to prove? Number one, the taking of personal property from the person or presence of a possessor against their will, taking by force or fear. And when we say taking from the person, means from the victim's body or his or her clothing, or from the presence of the possessor, these sort of concepts. So if you pull a gun on somebody and you demand their wallet, that's a pretty simple robbery case. If you have the capacity to hurt somebody and you threaten them, if they don't give up their pocketbook, you threaten them with violence or fear of bodily harm, that's a robbery. According to the Uniform Crime Report, which is maintained by the FBI, there's an estimated 354,000 robberies in the United States in 2012. So it's a very significant crime, it's a dangerous crime, and robberies can easily escalate into homicide depending on the circumstances. There are essentially two we've talked about the components of robbery. There are 2 degrees of robbery, and that's based on the legislative laws that codified it as a crime. First degree robbery is robbery while armed with a dangerous or deadly weapon. Second degree robbery is robbery with physical force but without a weapon. Now the nature of robbery is that an offender not only takes the personal property but also carries it away. And so the taking of a possession away from the victim and into the control of the robbery, that's sufficient evidence to convict a person of the crime. So if they pull a gun on you and they demand your wallet and you give it up, and once they take control of that wallet and they put it in their pocket and they start to move away, then we have the crime of robbery, the elements that we need. Now we just have to identify the perpetrator. There's 3 styles: the ambush, that's the least planned of the 3, based on the element of surprise; the selective raid, and this is much more planning is involved. Sometimes they will casing of the robbery scene. It doesn't take much, but let's say they're going to a couple of individuals are going to rob a liquor store. Well, they walk up and down. They see what time of the day at the liquor store. They might just decide at the last minute. They drive up. They see a jewelry store, say for example, and they say, "Hey, let's just check it out. Looks like a good opportunity. I'm sure they got jewelry in there, and they probably got cash." They walk in and do it. That would be kind of a selective raid. There's some casing of the robbery, but minimum of planning. Then you have a real, more sophisticated robbery where there's called the planned operation, and this where the robbery group examines all aspects of the situation. They do surveillance. They figure out possible contingencies that may occur. They see what time of the day that the least activity is in the is in the store or the bank that they're going to rob. Maybe there's a time of the day when there's more money at the business than other times. They look at the individuals that are working inside and what type of threat that they pose to the robbers. And they also look at getaways. Can we get in, get out? Think about timing. These are very well planned out robberies by professional robbers in some cases. So you got those 3: the ambush, the selective raid, and the much more planned operation. And sometimes robbery actually can result in a kidnapping charge as well if a person's moved away. So you have to look at the elements of kidnapping. They talk about it briefly in the textbook about that. Who are the participants in a robbery? Well, you got the robbery who actually commit the robbery. You have the getaway driver, A driver specialist, he remains in the vehicle until the robbery is complete, and he's the one that helps them flee the scene. Backup man, they remain in the background unnoticed. Maybe they're looking out to see if there's any outside threats like the police that are coming up on the scene. They should provide support to the actual robbers that are carrying out the robbery at the scene. And again, this person may be involved in fighting off the police if they're actually detected. Maybe an alarm sounds, and like a silent alarm, and the police respond. Well, this person is going to be engaged with the police to assist the other robbers in the conspiracy to rob the location. And even though most robberies are carried out by men, it's not unusual today to have women involved in robberies. So it's not just gender specific. Some of the signature aspects to robberies are interesting. Robberies are usually committed in a series. In other words, maybe somebody's known for robbing Subway food stores, and so they continuously hit the same places. They're confident in their ability to carry out successfully robberies at those locations or at those particular business ventures. And so, as an investigator, you want to search for those links that will help you provide, because at different locations, if you have multiple robberies of the same type facilities, you might be able to gather evidence at different facilities that help you link them, and you know that you're dealing with, say, 1-2-man team versus that rob 5 stores rather than 5 2-person teams that each are robbing individual stores. So this helps a lot. And these are things that, as an investigator, you want to be able to try to link. Also, different trademarks of the modus operandi, or the MO, how these individuals carry out their crimes. And there are different types. In the book, they have several that they discuss. Like, for example, the paper bag robbery. He carried his own brown paper bag to the scene of the robberies and tells the victims to put the money in the bag. Maybe it's the mask they wear. They have their MO, their same MO, and their same method of operation as to how they pull these things off. And many times they're very consistent in the way they do these things. And this, again, is important for the investigators to be able to link these robberies together, especially if you have the same individuals conducting multiple robberies. And in those methods of operation, you can also see different robbery teams or robbers that are very violent prone. They've seen an increase in that in recent years, where maybe in the past or in many occasions the robber uses a weapon that he takes in strictly as self-defense, and also as the threat aspect to force the individual to provide whatever they're asking, whatever they're trying to steal during the course of the robbery. But even today you're starting to see the use of force by the robbers themselves beyond what is necessary. Maybe they'll pistol whip somebody. Maybe they'll just shoot somebody for no reason, even if the victim of the robbery cooperates. And this could be involved related to drug use and other, or it could just be, maybe it's a gang thing. There's different elements, different variables that can impact that MO. And of course, obviously, if you have a robbery team that's going around pistol whipping people, using violence beyond what is necessary, then you really have to get on these cases quickly, because these people pose a great threat to society itself. And as our textbook talks about, you also have addict robbers. I mean, strictly they rob until they get enough money to buy the illegal drugs that they use, and then when the money runs out, they go out and rob again. This is their way to keep their habit going. The targets in robberies are varied. Obviously, bank robberies, because why? Because that's where the money is. Many times, bank robbers are usually a single person passing a note in a very low-key manner. Bank robberies are a federal crime because banks are insured at the federal level by the FDIC, and as such are our laws are such that a person that robs a bank is robbing a federally insured facility or business, and that makes it a federal crime. The FBI investigates these robberies, but you also can charge a person. Every state has its own robbery laws, so if somebody robs a bank, you could also charge them in state court as well. But it is a federal crime. Robberies are serial crimes. In other words, these individuals will keep robbing until they get caught. And the research shows that. And it's not just banks either. When I was a postal inspector, we had robberies of post offices. Why? Because that's where the money is. And of course, those were federal crimes as well. And we would vigorously investigate those crimes. Some of the, in response to the threat from robbery, banks and other institutions that have money, there's what we would call preventative measures that are, and security measures that are included in the overall crime prevention strategies of these businesses. And there are, video cameras, which are very useful, obviously, in identifying robbers. And I've put a few films, I've attached a few films in the course materials for you to view. Alarm systems, different types of doors, bulletproof glass, bait money. In other words, if an individual comes into a bank or a post office and robs and asks for the cash, well, there's certain cash in the drawers that the tellers are told to give to the robber because those serial numbers have been recorded. They also have die packs where they will, when they open up the pack, it'll explode, and this will enable investigators to identify an individual who is covered in the commercial dyes that are used in these die packs. You can also now put GPS devices. Obviously, many financial institutions use armed guards and training. You have to train your clerks, your bank clerks, and other individuals on what to look for if they become the victim of a robbery. And I know as an inspector, we used to train our tellers and our clerks on what to look for, to be more observant if they do become the victim of a robbery. Become more observant. Obviously, not to give them the money. We don't want them. That's not your money. Think of it as your money. So we surely don't want them to resist a robbery. If a person's got a gun on them, give them what they want. Try to give them the marked money, and at the same time, take note of their clothing and their physical appearance, so that you'll be able to give us a good statement as to the efforts to identify who the suspects are. And of course, obviously, video surveillance is good. And I've even had employees run out when the people are leaving and surreptitiously, without being seen, get a plate number or get a partial plate description. And those things are very useful when we put out a broadcast alarm after a robbery and try to identify the individuals very, relatively quickly. But these are all countermeasures that are used to prevent, banks and businesses from becoming victimized. But robbers are robbers. When they want the money, they're going to come in there anyway, even if the risk is greater than the potential reward. And as I stated before, other types of robberies, you got home invasion robberies today. You have drug house robberies, where they'll try to rip off an illegal drug operation because there's a lot of cash there. Street robberies are very common, just somebody walking up on somebody on the street. Carjackings is a form of robbery where you steal a person's vehicle. Identification evidence is very important. In robberies in which the victim is not killed, identification can be made through facial characteristics, natural marks, tattoos. This is where that training comes in, kicks in for employees. Speech characteristics, these are all things that when you interview a victim of a robbery, that'll be useful in trying to identify who the suspects are. And of course, robbers do wear masks at times. It doesn't mean, even though they have a mask, you might not have that facial identification, but maybe they'll pick up on a tattoo, or maybe they'll pick up on a particular speech impact. And there's also evidence that's left at the crime scene. It could be fingerprints, could be footprints. I talked about the picking up a plate number, these sort of things. And of course, surveillance cameras have become very useful in the identification of robbery suspects. And the media is very useful also in publishing photographs of individuals involved in robberies and trying to get the public to provide information to the police. There's a long checklist that I'm not going to go through, but it's on page 211 of your textbook. Very useful in working robbery cases. Again, carjacking, just to go through that real quickly, is the theft or attempted theft of a motor vehicle by force or threat. And we see that all the time. Many times this occurs with an armed weapon, an armed robber. Hopefully none of you will ever be the victim of that sort of thing, but I'll surely give up a car rather than get shot. And of course, robberies are crime scenes, so there's a lot of forensic evidence that can be gathered. You'd be surprised what you can pick up. Robbers do touch countertops. There's always the potential for a transfer of some evidence at the crime scene itself, so it has to be processed as a crime scene as well. And that should end my comments on Chapter 11.